Ladies and gentlemen, hello and welcome back once again to the only coast to coast radio show all about the information economy. It's time for Inside Analysis. Yours truly, Eric Kavanagh, is here with Rory Crone. He is the Senior Director of Marketing for a very cool thing called the AI Summit. And folks, I'm sure you've heard all about AI these days. Artificial intelligence is all the rage. Of course, it's not just Gen AI. There are lots of other kinds of AI that have been around for years, for decades, quite frankly. But Gen AI has definitely captured the imagination of the people in the business world. And so I'm sure that's a big part of what's happening at the summit. But Rory is dialing in live from the Javits Center, I believe, right? Rory, welcome to the show.
Indeed, I am. Thanks very much. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, so tell us what's going on. What's the hot topic? I'm sure that's AI, but any particular flavor of AI, like what's going on the show floor?
Well, there is a real buzz on the show floor over the last couple of days here. We've had 6,500 people so far descend on the Javits Center.
Wow.
Yeah, that's 1,500 more than last year. So AI is the hot topic at the moment. In terms of what people are talking about, yes, Gen AI. Gen AI is the big one. Everyone is trying to implement it, wanting to know how to implement it, ways to scale it. But there's some really interesting other topics surfacing as well, such as governance, ethical considerations. People thinking about AI as force coming to take over their jobs. But there is a lot of talk here over the last couple of days about the human element of it. And actually, it's not here to take your job, it's here to make you more efficient, enhance what you do. And if you know how to yield it, it will make you better at your job ultimately. So there's some really good debates and talks been happening across the show floor and in all the stages.
Yeah, I'm very glad to hear you say that because you're right. AI is not necessarily going to take jobs. Now, there are foolish CEOs who may just lay people off thinking AI is going to take care of things, and that's not going to work too well. They usually wind up hiring a lot of those people back to
Yeah.
fix the messes that were caused. AI is a very powerful tool. I had one of my favorite people on the show the other day, and he had a funny comment. He goes, "Yeah, like any sharp tool, you can cut yourself, so you have to be careful with this stuff." And that's where
Yeah.
the governance storyline comes in, right, Rory?
Yes, it is absolutely. And I think it's interesting. We run a show in London as well. So we run the ISM at London and we run them across the globe. Um, it is a topic that is talked about at every event, but it's interesting how, depending where you are in the world, the conversation is different. Obviously, Europe, they have passed an AI Act in the EU across Europe. Asia is also talking about an alliance between countries coming together to decide how they want to govern AI. And then obviously in the US, it kind of differs coast to coast, and depending where you are, there is no one law that will govern all, it seems.
That's right.
But it's on the topic for conversations, and that's the important thing.
Yeah, and sovereignty. I mean, you're kind of hinting at that right now. That's one of the biggest topics of AI and where the data is kept. Of course, the EU has GDPR. The California folks passed the CCPA. Someone told me that 32 or 33 different states in the United States are either considering or working to pass some kind of legislation. And that's good. And it's also a bit concerning, especially if you have 30 different sets of rules to follow around the
Hmm.
world, that becomes a problem. But AI governance, you say, is a pretty hot topic, and that bleeds right into data governance because if your
Hmm.
data isn't governed, you're going to have a real hard time governing your AI, right? Do you see data governance per se as a hot topic?
It's talked about. You can't separate the two. AI exists to to make data easier to manage ultimately and to process data. So the conversation they are inextricable topics of conversation.
Yeah.
And so yes, it is talked about a lot. Um, I'll be honest, I haven't heard much about the data governance element. It's been more about the AI element and not letting your AI get out of control,
Hmm.
or
Yeah.
how you deploy it ethically, which then flows into, as you say, into the data, because then you have ethical AI installed by rights, it should then treat the data with respect and ethically as well.
Yeah, and I'm glad you're talking about the ethics of AI as well. You know, we were just talking on the show earlier today about this very same topic. What is ethical AI? Well, if you're having a conversation about that, you're at least on the road to getting there, right? As opposed to just blowing it off and kind of letting the AI do what it wants. And this brings
Yeah.
us back to the human in the loop. And for most enterprise use cases, what I'm seeing is that there are still humans very much in the loop monitoring these things. And in fact,
Mhm,
most Gen AI applications are really for personal productivity and are inwardly focused, meaning they are decision support. And that's a
mhm.
very safe place for it to be because there's still a human who can make the decision about what to do. And I think
Yeah,
that's the key is the right, the human is the ethical construct in this conversation in the workflow, right?
exactly that. And it's about how the human trains the AI to be. Obviously, the
Right,
AI is learning the whole time, but it's what you put in at the beginning is what you depends or dictates the quality of what you get out at the end ultimately.
right.
So there's been talk here over the last couple of days again about upskilling, training your employees to be the experts in AI, upskilling, collaboration, getting people talking to one another, literacy in AI, fluency in AI, in data programming. That is what will make AI tools effective. And the collaboration elements between different departments, between functions, between businesses. Um, those also ensure that the AI then addresses the real world problems that our attendees are all here to talk about.
Yeah, right. Well, I'm glad to hear that, and I'm glad to know that the audience is talking about that or and is seeking it. I think the upskilling is probably about the most important thing that companies can be doing right now because you really you can't control the the edge models or the foundational models as they call them. You can't control that, but you can
Mhm,
control what your organization does and what your people do. And I think that AI upskilling is really important because you have to understand what are the appropriate use cases for AI? So let's stick with
mhm.
generative AI because it's such a hot topic. What does it do? It creates text, it creates imagery, but someone has to monitor that and manage it and sort of govern and shepherd the use of these things. And again, that's the people. So when you talk about upskilling, really you're trying to help people understand what these technologies are and where the appropriate use cases are. And what I've seen, I'm curious to hear your thoughts on this, is that research is a real big part of that because you can set your little AI agent off to research any number of things. A guy today works in data centers and he has an AI agent that scrapes whatever news content happens all around the world about data centers, data center construction, data center issues, concerns, pricing changes, whatever the case may be. For the research needed for an organization, Gen AI is fantastic. Agentic AI can be fantastic, right?
Yeah, absolutely. And we see a lot of businesses using it. It's also a slightly dangerous topic in the sense that Jay and I, we talk about hallucinations
Talking about
and
what?
hallucinations.
Oh,
So that is
hallucinations,
when
right?
the AI starts to make stuff up on its own
Right.
when it can't find the answer ultimately. So again, back to the human element, that yes, it can go off, it can do all the research you want, it can gather information, but it does still need that human element to be checking it for accuracy and making sure that what it's spitting out the end or what it presents you with as a final piece of research perhaps is authentic and accurate. And that's certainly something we have a creative industry stage here on our show floor. It's the first time we've launched that. And it has been very busy over the last
Hmm.
few days. And it's a lot of people coming together from advertising, from journalism, from marketing. It's people who are using AI effectively. So these are the people who are, these are the industries where it's kind of the impact is being felt in terms of will this take my job? Will this replace what I do? If AI can go off and research or can write copy or can write, um, articles, do I still have a job? And what's been really interesting to see across the stages is people using it and using it well and presenting to our audience how to make it work for you in these creative roles.
Yeah, that's great news to hear. And you're a marketing director, so you're responsible for getting people to the show. And you know that
Yes.
there are all these channels that could be used. And I have to say, hats off on getting 6,500 people to come, 1,500
Mhm.
more than last year. It's a 30% increase, if my math is
Yep.
correct here, which is
That's quick
good.
maths.
Yeah, that's good. The people in charge loved seeing that kind of thing. I've got a bit of a curveball question for you though, because I'll tell you what I've seen, and media companies are seeing this, and the so-called organic web is seeing this. In the old days, by which I mean the last 20 years, most marketers would do inbound marketing, and what that meant was spending money on Google AdWords to get into the search term results that people would put into their Google little line trying to
Mhm.
find information. Well, a lot of that traffic is collapsing now because with ChatGPT and Gemini and Claude, you're getting the whole answer. And yes, they are giving little citations. Very few people click on those links. So
Yeah,
all of a sudden, everything has changed. I'm seeing this just widespread disruption and grave concern with marketers pulling their hair out. Of course, I already got that taken care of. But what do you see, and how did it affect your marketing plans to realize that the so-called organic web is really suffering in traffic because of the large language models?
yeah. So we refer to them as the zero-click search results, um, because as you said, there is no click. The answer's
Right,
there, and people are seeing their traffic drop off a cliff. If their website is if the AI, especially on Google, most people are using Google for their searches.
right,
They get it right there. They're not bothering to visit your website because they've got what they
right.
wanted. They've asked a question, it's there. So the way that we've had to write our website, the way that the content is presented on the site and scripted, it has had to change. And we're lucky enough in our business that we have a fantastic SEO expert who is constantly on courses and upskilling and making sure she knows exactly how to advise us best to first of all build our site in the back end to make sure that it is the site that Google is pulling the answers from because that's a good thing for us,
Interesting.
and but also that our content is written in a way that actually answers the questions that people would be asking as well, and hopefully you tempt them enough with an answer that they want to know more, and they end up clicking through. Um, but it is a
That's
really interesting one. And on the flip side of that, or related to that, we also are seeing a lot of traffic starting to come through from the likes of ChatGPT. So where
interesting.
people used to go to Google, or people go to Google to ask a question, they now start at ChatGPT,
Hmm.
and they go and ChatGPT then. So again, it's about building a website to ensure that the large language models are listing you up there in the results and getting the
Yeah,
answers from your site. And that's all to
right.
do with site reputation.
Right. That's really, really interesting. And I have to hand it to you. I'm going to write about this because, as far as I'm concerned, you coined the term the zero click experience, right? Because people are getting
Yeah.
the answers. And the false conclusion to draw is that you don't have to do all this work anymore because they're not clicking. No, no, no. You still have to do work, but to your point, and I'm also impressed that you are focusing on the content creation with the right mindset, which is answering the questions that people are going to ask. So, with Google, they built their entire multi-trillion dollar empire on keywords. That's it. It's
Mhm.
keywords in terms of search, it's AdWords in terms of the financing side of that. And of course, they got so successful that now you search for something and you get 30 ads before you get to any organic results.
Yeah.
That's also part of the problem. It's, of course, a problem of great success, but it's a problem nonetheless. So I think it's very clever that you are paying attention to these changing dynamics and changing the content on your site. Markdown, in terms of a format, I've heard is extremely good. The LLMs like Markdown, but it's
Hmm.
hard. You have to play around with things and then really test and evaluate. And that's why I hear about all these evals, right?
Hmm. Well, we have a test and learn methodology is very much ingrained in our marketing team at the moment, and we have weekly meetings with this SEO expert that we have within the team to see, right, we tried this, we launched this page, how did it do? A
Wow.
week in, 2 weeks in. And I mean, when you're running a campaign such as ours for an event as popular as this, you're getting a lot of traffic, especially in these last, 6 weeks of the campaign. So it's a
Right.
great time to be doing these tests. I mean, it's not great for the stress levels as you're testing and just trying stuff out, but it's an enjoyable experience for my team because they get to really kind of get creative with how they create new pages and the content that they use and just the way that they write. And again, they're using AI to write the content to make sure that it's correct and it's what people are searching for, and then they're tweaking it to fit our brand language and the way that we talk to our clients and our attendees.
Yeah, that's excellent advice that you just gave, and I'm going to point something out and let you comment on it. Creative people want feedback. Creative people, if you're sitting there building pages, you want to know if it's working or if it's not working. So the fact that you meet every week and go over this is an incredibly good sign. That's a good process. That's a good
Yeah.
guardrail to ensure success because you have to be constantly monitoring what it's doing, in part because they also change. I mean, when the
Mm,
new model comes out with ChatGPT, they came out with the new model, said, yeah, you can't use the old models anymore. And a lot of people were like, huh? Well, what's that all about? And
yeah.
that's, of course, the problem of relying so heavily on some outside organization that can pull the rug on you. But I
Oh
have
yeah.
to say, that's a very, very good story you just gave about how your team works. Like you say, especially in the final weeks, because the more you play with these things, the more you learn about them and how they operate, the better you can use them, right?
Yeah, exactly. Let's use the tools at our disposal in the right way. But it also, I'll tell you what, in terms of creativity, it helps you, it makes you get creative with the channels you use as well. So we're
Interesting.
not, we, for the first time in this campaign, we did a lot of out of home stuff around New York City, which we wouldn't usually do because it's not as trackable as, your digital channels. Um, but you, as I say, you've got to get creative because you don't know who's going to pull the rug out at any moment. So you don't want to put all your eggs in one basket.
Yeah. So when you say, what did you say, out of home stuff? Is that
Out
like
of home.
billboards and
So
things?
it's your bill, yeah, billboards, digital ads around the city. It's just
Hmm.
they, traditionally being used mostly for brand awareness, just to get your message out, get your brand out there, get it seen. Um,
Yeah. Yeah,
but
that's
yeah,
interesting. You bring up an excellent point, and maybe we can kind of dig deeper into this in the next segment here, because there is this allure of the data and of understanding the data. Now, the downside of that with the digital world is a lot of that data is bots. A lot of that data is not real people
yeah,
clicking on things. So being able to discern between bots and human traffic, that's a big issue. But I'm glad that you're paying attention to all the other advertising venues out there, which are all
oh
the
yeah,
ones we relied on before the internet, right?
yeah,
And it's
yeah.
like
Well,
that stuff didn't go
it's
away.
I tell you what, I think we're entering the return of the direct mail. People don't get posts anymore, but when you do, it's a little intriguing. You want to open it
That's
and see what's in
funny.
there.
That's funny. So you guys were trying all kinds of different marketing, and to your point, you can't track it quite as well. But when you come in at 30% over last year, that in and of itself is a pretty strong statement. So it's like, okay, I
Yeah,
think that overall it worked
yeah.
because that's the other thing too. And our first break is coming up here, folks. But the other thing too is to remember a comprehensive approach is going to get you to the finish line. Getting too lost in the weeds of the data that you can get from digital can be very distracting and very disruptive to your ultimate end goal, which is to get people to come to the conference. And what's the old expression? You can't argue with success. Well, folks, don't touch that dial. I'll be right back talking to Rory Crone. He is the Senior Director of Marketing for the AI Summit, the whole series. And it's in New York right now. We'll be right back. You're listening to Inside Analysis. All right, folks, back here on Inside Analysis, talking to Rory Crone. He has head up the marketing for the AI Summit, which is in New York right now at the Javits Center. 6,500 attendees have come rolling into the Javits. That's very exciting stuff. AI is white hot. And Rory, he knows his marketing. He's not just doing the digital stuff. They're doing billboards. They're doing digital ads. Now you got ads on cabs running around the town, and there's all kind of stuff. And old-fashioned print mail, direct mail. Who'd have thunk it? Direct mail is coming back. And they're coming to see the speakers too. You've got a bunch of really good speakers. Who were some of the headliners this year?
Yeah, do you know, we've had some great speakers this year. So we've had Nitzan Meckel, who's the Chief AI Officer at eBay. We've had Matthew Fraser, he's come to our show a couple of times now. He's the Chief Technology Officer for New York City.
Hmm,
We've had Aaron Rajan, who's the Chief Digital Information Officer and Global VP of Unilever. Nitin Seth, co-founder and CEO of Incedo.
hmm.
He has just launched his book at the show, which was kind of
Nice.
exciting. A lot of copies floating around. If,
Yeah.
hopefully some of them are signed as well.
There you go.
And yeah, so yeah, big names.
Well, and so there are obviously two huge worlds in the business environment. There's B2B, there's B2C. There's also B2B2C, all kinds of other things like that. But AI affects everybody. And I think
Mhm.
one of the more magical domains of AI, speaking to like someone like Unilever, is getting into that B2C and really understanding something we've talked about for decades and has never really been there, and that's personalization. Because
Mhm.
now the Gen AI engine can get access through, let's say, MCP, Model Context Protocol, to your CRM system, for example, to understand, okay, Rory likes to buy nice clothes and he likes these kinds of styles, etc. You can actually grab that stuff in a runtime and weave it into a personalized email to someone at scale. Well, I've been doing tracked email marketing now for over 25 years, which is like 3 times the length of most veterans in the space. And I can tell you that the more the more accurate your message is to a recipient, the higher likelihood they are to open the email, to click on something, and to take action from it. If you spam people with meaningless stuff that they have no interest in, that is very bad for your results. It's very bad
Oh
for
yeah.
open rates, click rates, everything. So, are you seeing a lot of companies talk about that personalization now with Gen AI?
Yeah, it's certainly making it easier. Let's just say that.
Yeah,
I think it's as you said, excellent point. Is you can't spamming doesn't work anymore. People
right,
receive too many emails.
right.
Everyone, my inbox is an absolute state at the moment. I will be going through and hitting delete on most of them. I'll be honest. Unless there is something. First, two things. Subject line. If that's personalized to you and it's something that you are interested in, you're gonna take note. If it's clever and I don't know, I'm a fan of alliterations for clever phrasing. That always
Nice.
captures my attention as well. But I'm sure the AI knows that somewhere. That's why I'm getting it in my inbox.
No, that's
And then yes,
interesting.
exactly that. Using dynamic content within emails, personalized, hyper personalized to the recipient. The AI is making that so much easier. Dynamic content's been around for years. We've been using that, but it's you deciding what the person should be reading as opposed to the other way around,
Yeah,
which
right.
is what we are going to see now with AI.
Right. Well, and back to this general theme of AI helping your job as opposed to AI taking your job. I try to point out to folks that generative AI, especially these large language models, they're really consensus engines. And what that means is they're going to give you the average of what they've seen based upon their training and upon your prompt. And then the other interesting thing, and I just learned this the other day, and I've studied this stuff extensively, the models are designed, of course, to predict the next token. And whatever token comes out, which is usually like half a word or a word basically, will affect the next word that comes out. It's amazing how these things operate. And they are designed to not choose the most likely token because they want to be creative and generative. So that's why it's kind of dynamic, punchy writing. So when it comes to talking about a dog, it'll use the word hound instead of dog, for example. That is also a bit of a hallmark to know when someone is using, or at least have a good idea when they're using an LLM, because it's a little punchier than normal, although that's kind of how I usually write. So, I'm either impressed or concerned. I'm not sure which that the LLMs are tracking my style. And you can add a style to it too. But what I'm pointing out here is that you still need the human because humans have real creativity. LLMs are not creative, they're just algorithms. That's all they are. It's just algorithms crunching numbers. And that's the other side is that there's a lossy process here. And I explained to folks the reason they convert it to vectors is partly because you can't crunch letters and you can't crunch images, but you can crunch numbers. And so that's what they're doing is they're converting all these texts into tokens, which are vectors. Basically, it's mathematical. And there's a vector database that captures all the different concepts like dog, cat, radio, TV, all these things. But there are semantic levels that need to be monitored and watched for. But the point is, you still need the people and the people are going to use the Gen AI and fine tune that stuff. Don't just take whatever it spits out and just publish it. Be careful about that. But my point is that creative people should not be that concerned. Just learn how to use the new tools, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And it's not just creatives. We have there's been cases in the UK, and I don't know if you've had it also over here in the US. We've got lawyers using these models to put their
Yeah.
cases together, to put their briefs together, and presenting it in court without reading it. I think they're quickly stripped of their qualification.
Yes,
Um,
yes,
but
that's
it's
not good.
exactly that. Yeah, it's not just good. It's being used cross industries. But yeah, as you say, it's always you got to check it.
Well, and they're also good at just giving you A, ideas, and B, at sort of covering all the bases about something. I mean, people forget things. Like we are forgetful entities because you can't remember everything all the time. And so when you're planning out a project, they can be very useful for just reminding you of the different steps you take or the different component parts of something. And for anything that's been well trained on, like developing a marketing plan, it's going to do a pretty good job of giving you the basics that you need to cover, but you, the person, still need to go in there and add your personal flair, add your own creativity. That's the success factor, I think. What do you think?
Oh, I know, I completely agree. I say to my team, what's interesting with my team, a lot of us, me personally, I went into marketing the creative element. I like the creativity. But over the years, and especially with AI, we are both artists and scientists now. So
Yeah.
you're using left brain and right brain. And it's interesting over the years that the people coming into marketing, when I used to interview back in the day, there's the people who are interested in, they're using clever wording or using the creativity or doing the design work. Nowadays, it's the people coming in with the data and the SEO, and because they enjoy dealing with big
Yeah.
amounts of data or the
Yeah.
psychological elements of it. So even just the type of people that different industries are attracting is changing. And I just see that continuing with AI, hugely
Yeah.
so.
Well, and also, I'll just give you a fun little use case here, right? Because I was playing around and we're here in Pittsburgh, and there's a place called Station Square, which is a really cool little area. And it used to be a real hot spot, and now it's all kind of falling apart. There are only a couple restaurants left. It's not doing too well. Just things change. But I just did some research on it. Hard Rock Cafe closed, so we were a little sad about that. But I just did a Google search, and it had a Reddit post about this. And then under that Reddit post, there were like 250 comments. And I'm not going to sit there and read all that. But you know what I did? Control A, Control C, open ChatGPT, Control V. Hey, please write a short article for me using all these comments. And brrr, it just banged it right out. So it allows you to consume larger amounts of text and content very, very quickly using that summary algorithm, right?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, I use that all the time. In fact, I tell you what, I use it for long emails as well. Straight in. Give me the, the 5 bullet points I need to know about this.
Right,
So yeah,
right. Well,
it's
it's the
useful.
TLDR, right? I even didn't know. I'm like,
That's
what is
it.
TLDR? Like too long, didn't read. Oh,
Yeah.
okay. Kind of like some of my textbooks in college, right? But for the, it's like a cliff. It's like basically, they should call that algorithm Cliff's Notes, right? Because it's just
Yeah.
like you do the Cliff Notes, bing. It's
Yeah.
good. I mean, it doesn't technically summarize, but it gets so close to the accuracy that you need that it might as well summarize. And
Mhm.
here again is a use case. And this is what I keep telling folks about AI and Gen AI. Don't be so much afraid of it as concerned about what it does well and what it doesn't do well. And that summarization component in and of itself, I think, is just gangbusters in terms of value because it can get you through very difficult parts of your job and of your life if you could just quickly summarize something. I mean, that's just, and you look at what's happening with all these video conferences and how you have Otter and Fireflies and Read AI and even Zoom built in. What are they doing? It's very cool because now you can track not just the words being spoken, but the algorithms can track level of engagement or confidence of voice, clarity of questions, thoughtfulness of answers. And I would argue that's how these LLMs are trying to ascertain authenticity because they're looking at different dimensions. They're pulling stuff from YouTube, they're looking at the transcript, but they're also looking for different dimensions and beyond the old algorithms that Google came up with, because of course their whole thing was search and it was all based on text. Everything was based on text. Now we have video, and I'm quite sure that's why you see so much video now on LinkedIn because
Mhm.
A, it's attractive and it gets you to pay attention, but B, it allows the algorithms to kind of do their ascertainment of authenticity. What do you think?
Oh, I think certainly on LinkedIn, it's a combination of people's attention span
Yeah,
declining over the years,
right.
um, and not wanting to read. But yeah, I completely agree. And what's actually interesting with that, we also run a show at a conference called Black Hat for a cybersecurity show.
Okay.
We do that in Vegas in August. What we saw last year, or this year at the show, is the rise of the deep fakes. So all that video content that is out there with your voice on it, with your face on it,
Right.
the AIs are also being used by criminals to create these deep fakes of your face, your voice, and tricking employees, partners, parents into thinking that you're asking for data, for money, or whatever it may be. And before you know it, we've got people clicking yes, sure, I'll do that, um,
Wow.
and 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 suddenly your bank account's empty, or your database is being shared with the
Mm.
wide world. So I think in one sense, yeah, the video is great and it's interesting, but it's also being used on the flip side in a very dark way.
Yeah. Well, and this is a very good point that you make. And these deep fakes, I was joking on a show just today, Chase Bank, which is my bank, pinged me, I don't know, like 3, 4 weeks ago and said, "Hey, we're launching this new service where you can access your account just using your voice. Like, click here to say yes." I said, "No, thank you very much. I don't want to do that. I've got all these videos on YouTube. Someone can grab my," and it's very good already. I mean, they can mimic a voice for it costs like, I don't know if it costs $1 or $2 maybe. There's some websites where you go to do that. And of course, we have the same dynamics that we always have in the market where you have big vendors like OpenAI, Anthropic, of course, Google with Gemini is probably in third place now if you're honest about it. What are they doing? They're giving you access at a loss leader level. In other words, they're kind of losing money by letting you play around with all these tools because they want you to stay with them and they want you to be their clients going forward. So there's a lot of stuff. There are going to be some strings pulled before too long on the cost side, I think, and on the functionality side to kind of align with expectations. But the bottom line is that deep fake stuff, it's very real and it's all over the place. So you have to, organizations really need to think through that in authentication and authorization and all these things that are fundamental to security and governance. You need to be really mindful of that and use, for example, two-factor authentication. I mean, it's a simple thing. It's a bit of a pain, but it's not unwarranted when you could lose hundreds of thousands or millions of dollars in a moment's notice, right?
Mhm. Yeah. Oh, absolutely. And it's also bringing in, well, it's bringing us back to face-to-face contact. And that's
Yes,
certainly events like this. People are
right,
definitely we're back.
right.
Everyone's loving back being face to face again. But it's trusting who's in front of you, and people are starting to lose trust when they're staring at a computer screen because who are they? They don't necessarily know exactly who they're talking to sometimes
Right.
because of these deepfakes. So we've seen some businesses where, yes, if you get asked something that seems suspicious, you hang up, you call back, or you go down the hallway and you go to the office and you just check face to face. Did you ask me to do this? It seems bizarre, but this is the world we live in. It's certainly
Isn't
the world,
that
the way the world
bizarre?
is going.
Yeah, and there's an ethical concern too, something else we've talked about recently, which is the impact this has on kids and on learning. And, I've noticed now a lot of kids will just default to saying, "Oh, that's AI." They'll see a video, say,
Mm,
"Oh, no, Dad, that's AI." And it may be AI, it may not be AI. But here we go with the trust factor again. Who do you trust? I think you kind of hit the nail on the head that in person is coming back. And I'm very happy about that because in person, you can have very meaningful conversations because you can react to their response in real time. Whereas over the phone, you can't see the person, so you can't see them rolling their eyes, for example, if you made a silly statement. And it's really nice to have that one-on-one interaction. I mean, even over Zoom, luckily it's too expensive to have these deep fakes that talk for a long, long time. And there are all these phone calls that we're getting. I had someone fundraising where it's like, they go, "Hey, how you doing?" And there's a pause, like for me to say, "Oh,
oh
what's
yeah,
going on?" And it's designed to have another pause. And oh, so I wanted to get you. And it's like, okay, I know this is an AI chatbot. I know that you're not a real person, and that's not good for customer service.
yeah,
I mean, I remember customer experience was like so important a couple of years ago, and then AI came along, and everyone's like using chatbots, and it's like, that may not be best for customer experience. But folks, we're up at our next break. Stand by. We'll be right back talking to Rory Crone of the AI Summit in New York right now. You're listening to Inside Analysis. All right, folks, back here on Inside Analysis, talking to Rory Crone. He is the Senior Director of Marketing for the AI Summit, which is in New York right now at the Javits Center. 6,500 people rolling into the Javits to learn all about AI, what it's doing. And you guys have conferences all around the world, right? It's the 10th annual here in the US, and you got your 10th one coming up in London next, right?
we do indeed. Yes, so 10 years is crazy for an AI conference, but yeah, it
Time flies.
started with an idea that this new technology was coming through. Businesses were trying to use it. They didn't quite know how to use it. There was a lot of hype, a lot of buzz. So that was the point of these shows when they first launched was just to try and cut through that and give people actionable use cases. So this
Yeah.
is what I've done in my business, and you could do the same. It started with that with in New York was the first show that ran a couple of hundred people an office downtown, and we've ended up here 10 years later in the Javits. Um,
Wow.
and now with the global series. So we have Singapore, the ASM at Singapore is in May, the ASM at London in June, which is our 10th year. I mentioned Black Hat previously, so we have the ASM at Black Hat in Vegas in August, the ASM at Cape Town in November, And here's an exclusive for you. We have just announced that we are launching the AI Summit Australia in
Oh, nice.
September. So we are truly, yeah, we've gone global.
Well, it is everywhere. And, you made an interesting point, and I've heard other folks talk about this too. Depending on upon where you go, whether it's country or even cities within countries, there are different mores, there are different cultural norms, there are different things that are acceptable and not acceptable. In Singapore, don't spit your gum on the ground, for example. Like they're pretty
Oh
strict
yeah.
about that kind of thing. You want to be very mindful and you want to respect the cultures that you're in. So AI increasingly does need to take that into consideration. So Gen AI in particular, and I remember when I first started playing with these things, I'm like, huh, so if they can write in English and French and German, I bet it can also write in C sharp and Java and HTML. And short answer is yes, it can. So it's this expediting factor no matter where you are in the world. And it's really amazing. I mean, you look at technologies like StackBlitz, for example. I played around with it and I was on a call, and you're a marketer, so you might appreciate this. I was on a call probably like 6, 7 months ago, and there was a person who was going to be the web developer, and his friend who had brought him into the equation, and they start sort of bickering over, oh, what's this be that going to be? I was like, guys, like I promise you, we can build a prototype in almost no time. And they kept sort of bickering, and so I just went to StackBlitz and put in a few commands and hit enter. And by the time they were done talking, I had a website prototype to show them. I'm like, look, this is what's real today. You can spin this up like while you're talking. Inside of 60 seconds, I can have a nice looking website. Now, the danger is to think, oh, just throw that right into production. You do have to be careful because they tend to be kind of bloated. AI doesn't write very lean code. It tends to write fairly obtuse code. So you have to watch that a little bit. But Rory, think about the difference. You used to sit down with a web developer and they'd come back in a couple weeks with a prototype or something. Now you can do that in the meeting right now. I mean, how has that changed your day-to-day workflow?
I mean, it's insane, isn't it? I have very vivid memories of sitting. We want to launch a website, right? It will be 6, 7 months from now.
It's
uh,
brutal. I mean, the
it
weight
is,
is killing you, right? In the old
yeah.
days.
But it's great. We can react much faster. So I
Yeah.
mentioned the show we're launching in Australia. So we need a website. Well, we're going to get that out probably in the next week because we can move that quickly. Because as you say, gone are the days of having to brief a developer and wait
Yeah.
for the prototype to come through or even the drawings to come through first.
Right.
We can move fast, and it just means that we're more efficient as well, and we can focus our time on some of the bigger things, or we have more time in the day to do other things.
Right.
So yeah, I mean, I see nothing but opportunity.
Yeah. Well, and the cool thing too is that there's really no limit to what you can do with these large language models in terms of
Mm,
exploration. Now, to your point earlier, you do have to watch out. It's really in low distribution areas that you have trouble, meaning if there's a topic that has not been absorbed in the training, it may have some difficulty getting you to the right answer. So you do have to fact check and verify, but you can use these engines to tell you what the code does. You can grab a whole chunk of code in, let's say, C sharp or C++, plop it into an LLM and say, what does this do? And it'll fricking tell you. And it's like,
yeah,
now, and this is very exciting to me because I'm old enough to remember it was all about the business IT divide. And then something interesting happened called DevOps. And the developers started working directly with the operations people, and they started really banging out functionality on the websites and the supply chain, wherever. That was the DevOps phase. Then there became data ops, and now there's marketing ops, and everything is all about the ops. But the point is that anyone in a particular space of a company can learn about all the things the other people do just by chatting with one of these large language models. You can ask it all kinds of stuff. It's actually really good too with regulation and being able to map regulation to real world examples, to business processes. So my point is that anyone who wants to educate themselves can now do that. Really, just sitting there watching TV at night, you could be asking these things all kind of stuff, right?
yeah. I mean, you're having a full-on conversation because it answers back, and depending
Right.
which model you use, it's got a bit of personality sprinkled in there as well.
Yeah, right.
Uh,
That's right.
but yeah, no, fully. The it's as creative as you can be is what you can get out of it. But is what I think.
Right.
I use it for all sorts, from my travel plans to I'm going on holiday, give me an itinerary for the week, through to yeah, exactly what you just said. Kind of, how do I tell me about this? What do we do here?
Yeah.
What is this person? What is this job?
Yeah.
Internally within my business, we have launched our own AI model, which is based upon three different, I think we've got Claude, ChatGPT, and was it
Deep seek.
DeepSeek. So those three, and depending what kind of job you're doing or task you're doing at the time, is you choose the one that works for you. You know,
Interesting.
one's more creative, one's great for writing, one's good for coding.
Hmm.
Um, but it's also great because it brings together a lot of the things happening around the business into one area that you can ask the questions like, what is this team up to? Give me an example that someone else has done this in the business and show me how I could do it. So
Wow.
it's kind of opening up a whole new world of communication for us as well.
Well, that's an excellent use case. I have to say, hats off for going down that road because you're right. One of the big challenges in running a business is being able to leverage institutional knowledge. What do we know as a collective group of people about how to run this business? And if you embrace large language models and give them access to data that they should have access to, you don't want to give it access to everything and be very careful about how you do that. But when you do that, then to your point, you can ask questions like, what is this group working on? Enter, and it will freaking tell you. How amazing is that? No, you don't have to have all these meetings. I mean, it fundamentally changes day-to-day processes and workflows, I think more than anything since the cloud came along. But what do you think?
Yeah, no, I completely agree. It's been talked about here. This is the next industrial revolution. You
Yeah,
know, we have the
right.
internet. People, and if you think back when the internet launched, people were scared of their jobs going.
Yeah,
Well, this is exactly the same. Um,
yeah,
it's just again, the jobs just change. They didn't
yeah,
disappear. You just have to upskill yourself and change which way you're working. Um,
yeah.
so yeah, totally agree.
Yeah. So we have Singapore coming up in May. We have London coming up in June. You've got the Black Hat in August in Las Vegas, right?
Mm.
And of course the white hats. We all love the white hats. They're the guys that
Oh,
are
yeah,
out there like trying to protect. But it's
exactly.
like
Yeah,
it's a real-time game out there and you have to keep on your toes and pay attention to doing what you need to do and focus on the basics on the security side, changing your passwords,
oh yeah,
two-factor authentication, the basic stuff you got to watch out for, but
yeah,
definitely embrace these technologies, right? That's the key.
yeah.
So,
Embrace but stay on your guard.
right,
I mentioned Black Hat before, but when I was there previously, we had one of our white knights, we were calling them, up on stage showing you exactly how it can be used the wrong way. So he got Simon Cowell's voice and he plugged it into his model because it's everywhere all over
wow,
the internet. He
wow.
then had Simon Cowell's wife's phone number, got that. So before you know it, he's ringing. No, he didn't ring a live, but it was a mock-up of this is what could happen.
Right.
So she gets a phone call. He speaks down the line, and he's typing the words right there and then. This is what I need you to do. Give me the bank details. I'm at the bank. So then the guy who's on stage is adding in a little bank noise in the background. Next
Oh.
customer, please. Next, right. No, sir, please come to the front of the line. And so the wife's hearing this to the phone, and before you know it, she's panicked because he's telling her, "No, I don't have any time. Go, go, urgency." And she's clicked the link, and then they're in.
That's
So yeah, it's
crazy.
it's fascinating. So it is about being on guard at the same time.
Yeah. Well, the AI Summit, and what's the main website for the summit?
If you type in Google the AI Summit New York, the AI
Yeah.
Summit London, we'll be the first there. We talked about hopefully, yeah, feel free to click. Zero click is a thing, but we do like the clicks. But it's the website address is theaisummit.com, and yeah, you'll find us there.
Well, look this gentleman up online, Rory Crone. I'm very impressed. He taught me a new thing, the zero-click experience. It's like, oh, that's what it is. But they're also using Gen AI very effectively to communicate, to collaborate, and that's really the key, folks. It's all about collaboration and embracing, but staying on your guard. Well, look them up online, the AI Summit. I hope to be in London, if not in Singapore, and we'll talk to you next time, folks. You've been listening to Inside Analysis.